Welcome to Tech This Way.
So you edit out the bad parts and
So the good news is it's recorded, right?
Okay.
So I can. But I do like to add everything in. So even this part will probably go in. So hi, thank you very much for joining me. Jes Min.
Hi Amran. Nice to see you again.
So yes, it's been a while since
Yes.
we last met, and our paths have crossed several times in our
Yes.
previous lives at Accenture, and then you abandoned us. And then to start off with what was it? Was it EY after? No, Bain?
No, I went to Bain.
You went to Bain,
Yes.
right? And then
MBA and then back to Bain. And then to start off Recommend Group.
okay.
Yep.
So start a little bit, I guess, from so what did you do in Accenture, and then after that,
Oh, you really want to know?
let's go all the way back. Okay, a little bit, like
Okay,
at least
okay.
let people understand your background a little bit.
Okay, great. So I joined Accenture way back in 2004, just out of school. Not really knowing what Accenture was about, like most people. So they thought, they took a look at me and said, hey, this girl looks like she can manage server. So they put me in global technology consulting. Right?
Yeah, the best group in Accenture.
Yeah, obviously. So I went in there, and then the truth is that I really didn't know anything about servers lah. But they were nice to me. They put me on the less techie projects. So I did a lot of the architecture type work, the technology strategy type of things. And I think after breaking a few servers, they finally decided, okay, this one is a very scary scary person to have in this.
So what was your degree? That must have been the reason why.
Mechanical engineering. So they thought, she can
There you go.
count, she can deal with engines. Same thing lah, right?
Server.
Yes. Server, right? So they put me in the server room and I have some stories of breaking servers.
Okay.
Yes. So after that, after I think about 2 years, I've always actually wanted to do strategy consulting, but Accenture it couldn't make up its mind on whether it wanted to do strategy or not. So I was always very interested in it. So along the way, I picked up some skills on the side, did Excel modeling on the weekends, volunteered to work for free for some of the managers there so that I could gain some skills. And when the practice really came back again for the nth time, I think in 2006 or 2007, I decided to move over to strategy consulting.
The real strategy
The
consulting.
real strategy consulting.
At the risk of insulting our former friends, I know Accenture does strategy too, but
Yes. No. So 2006 was real, like within Accenture.
yeah.
So strategy consulting.
Oh, I see.
So strategy consulting within Accenture. So
Okay.
we did pretty interesting work. I think we worked for people like even the central bank. Some of the biggest banks out there, including this one in which we are. The building that we are sitting in.
Maybank?
Yes.
Okay.
And we also did some work in Thailand, Indonesia. Some of the biggest petrochemical, oil and gas companies, right? So we did quite interesting work. So I worked in Indonesia, I worked in Thailand, Singapore as well. Did a stint in Hong Kong. Some of the largest merger integrations out there. Strategy pieces. So that was very exciting lah.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, I think 2008, 2009, we did the Sime Darby merger.
Okay.
Yeah, which has recently been reversed, but it was good times at the time. So we did the Sime
But
Darby.
you were like honing your skills in strategy, I feel like,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Along the way, I always knew that was the path that I wanted to move in.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did that. It was really exciting. And during that time, I think we had some colleagues in the same project. So it was, I think the project team was like maybe 200, 300 people at peak. So
That's
there were
big.
consultants like us. There were people like A.T. Kearney, Bain and Company. Then all the audit firms were there. All the legal firms were there. Basically, it was like a suit party. All of us are there, yeah. So during that time, I got to know some members of the Bain team. And I realized that some of the work they did was quite interesting as well. Probably more in line of, to what I wanted to do. So I think made friends with them and, they gave me an offer. So I moved over in 2010.
Okay.
Yes.
Was Accenture pissed off?
No, not at all actually.
Oh,
I think
You were screwing up the servers, right? So after that, it's like, how do we get rid of this girl?
No, I think after the first 2 years, they locked the server rooms. They're like, oh, this girl, let me take back my past. No more.
Okay, so how was
Yep.
Bain?
Bain was very different from Accenture. I mean, there are some things about Bain that was similar, like, consulting lah. So very much methodology driven, very much logic. There's always, financial implications. All these things was the same across the board. But I think Bain was a little bit more numbers driven. They are a lot more numbers driven, a lot more top down. So I got to work on some of the again biggest mergers and biggest strategy projects around. This time we were helping companies like Mondelez, the chocolate company that recently merged, the Cadbury Kraft merger.
Okay.
So we actually took the combined brand and tried to figure out how to grow it across Southeast Asia. So we tried to sell chocolates in Indonesia, tried to figure out how to extend the cold chain supply chain across even the smallest islands in Indonesia, that sort of thing. That was, I think, one of my more memorable ones.
Okay.
We also worked on
Why was that? Was it because it's chocolate or?
Oh, because when you deal with supply chain and retail chain, there's so many unexpected things, right? So some people ask me today, why does the chocolate in Indonesia taste very different? And it is different because it's a different chocolate. It's actually formulated differently. To reflect the fact that a lot of the chocolate is sold at all the warung and all the places where there is actually no refrigeration.
Okay.
So they needed the chocolate to be able to tahan.
Yeah, that doesn't not melt, right?
Yeah, it doesn't melt, right? So
is it really the kelapa sawit, the palm oil that?
Oh, that one
that?
I'm not sure, but for sure the formulation is completely different, right?
As in less cocoa.
Less cocoa and other filler stuff.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
And it, also to reflect income level. So, if you look at a developed nation and you taste the chocolate there, it's very padat, right? In terms of the meal, in terms of the cocoa content and all that. But you taste the ones in developing nations or nations where the income level is not so high.
Even Malaysia.
You have a lot more wafer. You have a lot more air, for example. Yeah. And this is meant to reduce the average cost so that the average person can afford chocolate.
Yeah.
Right. So, things like that we learned.
But you learned, So quite the nitty-gritty stuff on that industry, right?
Yes, it's quite interesting actually. Yeah.
So then, what happened after
after that, some of the other things I did helped AIA and ING merge.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So that was another interesting one. It's one of probably the largest insurance mergers around, right?
And I think that's one of the beauty of working for consultancies, right? That you get to move around in different industries, right? Different teams, obviously, different people.
Absolutely.
And you get to pick up all kinds of stuff, right?
I'm so grateful for the time in consulting. It's given a very good framework of how to think, how to make decisions, and definitely given me the opportunity to meet interesting people like yourselves.
So then what happened after that and towards the end of Bain?
Then actually in the middle of Bain, I actually left to do an MBA for a year.
Okay.
In INSEAD. Oh, sorry. So I left for a year to do an MBA in INSEAD. So that was part of the time
in Singapore or in France?
Fontainebleau in France.
Ooh.
Yeah, most of the time there, and then the rest of the time in Singapore.
Okay.
Yep.
How was that experience?
Oh, that was probably one of the best years of my life. Yeah. Truly amazing. Yeah.
For the pastries or the
yeah, the pastries.
But being in Paris, right? That must have been quite exciting life.
Yes.
Right?
So that Fontainebleau is about 1.5 hours out of Paris, and it's this really small kampung place where literally at night, right? There's no lights, so you could be driving, along the roads and stuff, and then there could be a moose or something, something with the horns one. I can't remember what. Yeah, we just jump in front of your car and...
So without INSEAD, that place would have been nothing.
Yeah, like literally kampung lah.
Right.
And even with INSEAD, it was a kampung, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, the experience was great.
Bunch of this management consultant. Okay, no lah, people doing the MBAs.
Yeah, there was like all sorts, and I think that was probably the first time I saw a really diverse group of people. So there were boring consultants and investment bankers, right? Like us, and then there were people who just started off their company 16 years ago and trying to figure out how to get it to the next level. People who spend their whole life working in social impact and basically working in some of the most difficult places in the world. So that was really eye-opening. And I think it was probably during that time when I got a good sense or I felt like, hey, I've gotten all these skills, in consulting, all this network and all that, right? But always something felt missing. And I think it was because I was not using the skills that I had to benefit people that really, really, really needed it. So it was during that time when I questioned hey, what kind of impact do I want to have in my life
Right,
on this world,
on
right?
people, right, yeah.
Yes, on people. So it was during a time when I got a sense that I wanted to spend a little bit more time looking at things like social impact and impact consulting.
Okay.
So after my MBA, Bain was really kind to allow me another 4 months off. I went to intern with Acumen Fund in East Africa. So that was based in Nairobi.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So that was I was very lucky as well. They were looking for someone with plantations
Okay.
expertise.
I have to admit, I don't know
Yes.
Nairobi very well, right? So in terms of development, how is that compared to Ipoh?
Say Ipoh. It's probably Ipoh or it's probably KL maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fairly safe, lah. Is it Nairobi?
Oh
safe?
no, it's
Oh.
not. Well, it's safe compared to the other war-torn countries, but
Yeah.
but it's not safe compared to say KL or
Right.
even Jakarta actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So what were you doing over there?
So I was interning for Acumen Fund. So
Mm.
Acumen Fund is actually a non-profit investment company based out of New York, and it's quite well funded, I think. But what their thesis was that if you could channel investments into companies or profit-generating companies with a lot of social impact, it will bring social improvement into the villages and all that, and increase the income level, thus moving people out of the poverty levels. So some of the companies I was looking at involve like cocoa roasting companies. So I was working with a coffee roaster for the longest time, and then things like chicken farming, so cotton growing. So
These
sort
are
of
companies
things, yeah.
that has a social impact standpoint but profitable, right? So this
Yes.
is not
So
charities
actually,
and
these are
donations.
businesses, but the nature of their businesses involve hiring lots and lots of workers. And because of that, it brings income to the
Right.
lowest. Yeah,
Right.
lowest. So, like for example, a cotton company would have tons and tons of pickers, for example. And then I was working for a coffee roaster, so that involved actually buying from all the small scale farmers.
So what were
all
you
around the area.
doing personally with these
Which
companies?
area. So
Yeah.
literally, I went in there, and my role was to help them decide whether they should invest in this coffee roasting outfit.
Huh.
And then later on, I also did chicken farming and stuff like that.
Okay.
lah. So,
So it is the strategic advice lah,
yes. So
for these businesses.
yes. So basically, I needed to tell my company whether or not we should put money into this company, how much it is likely to return over a few years, if it exits. But most importantly, how much $1 of funding could bring to the people, to the communities around there.
But did you actually go in? Did you go in just to assess and audit, if you like, these companies, or do you actually provide some advice to them to say, hey, you know what? If you do this with the coffee
Right.
machines that you have, then you can get better yield and stuff like that.
It was not so much of the advice, but we needed to do the typical investment due diligence, going to speak to all their customers to find out that what their strengths and weaknesses are, talking to the operations guy on the ground, and even tasting coffee to see whether they truly had a differentiation, whether the team really understood the economics of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you a coffee drinker?
No, actually, I'm allergic to coffee.
Oh,
so
man.
yeah, so it was a very difficult 3 months, and I'll explain why a little bit later, right? So yeah, basically talking to the coffee tasters and understanding that there are many tastes in coffee, just like wine, right?
Yeah.
And trying to understand whether or not it's truly differentiated from other companies around there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what was the challenge with the coffee?
I think
Or was it Nairobi?
not just. I think I went there with the desire or the ambition to want to really bring impact on the community, right? I think I underestimated how tough the life would be and how
For you or for them?
for me.
Okay.
I mean, their life was very, very tough. I mean, some of these farmers, they walk for maybe 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers a day.
This is
just
the
to-
National Geography type stuff that you see, right?
Pretty much like on a high level. But to earn $10 a day, to $10 they will walk 5 to 10 kilometers, and that $10 made all the difference in terms of sending their children to school, in terms of having food to put on the table. Right, so I could really see how $1 of funding really impacted a whole bunch of people, and I think that was life changing in a way, right? So I was very sure that I wanted to work in an industry that had similar impact at similar scale. But what I underestimated was I was quite lembab because Nairobi is also about, I think 1,000, if I'm not wrong, about 1,000 meters above ground. So the air was slightly thinner, and it's not like Kota Kinabalu. No, sorry, not Kota Kinabalu. Mount Kinabalu kind of level air thin. It's just 1,000, right? But I felt that I had a bit of altitude sickness, very, very minor. So
Okay.
every day
I guess it's because it's prolonged staying
Could
there,
be.
right? If you visit, I don't know, you go to Cameron Highlands for a weekend, I think that's
Me.
okay. But how long? So what was the period when you were in East Africa?
About 3 to 4 months.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was quite lembab lah. I had a headache every day, constantly
Right.
for no reason.
Ah.
I was like, throwing up. I had a sugar craving. So I ate mangoes, every day for lunch, like 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, with the skin,
Right.
because that's how it's done there, right?
Well, yeah, I guess you
Um,
localize. But you just didn't climatize, huh?
No,
to
it's just
that.
I was just so uncomfortable, and you can't go out at night alone because
Yeah.
it's still quite dangerous.
Right.
Yeah, you can't take pictures with your phone out of the car window because you'll get snatched.
And I guess I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, are there many Chinese girls out there in Nairobi, and when you walk the streets, do you
Not
get?
well. You don't walk the streets at night. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
either cab it or you have friends or you run lah, which I did a lot. Yeah, you just run. It was so uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay, well that's enriching. At the very
Yeah.
least, right?
So
To
you
see
always
that.
felt like yeah, and I think back then also there was a little bit of a natural, maybe distrust for Chinese looking people. I
Okay.
think you probably need to cut this out later, but I think the Chinese government was having many projects over there, and I think the
okay.
locals kind of felt like, why are these people kind of like flooding our country and taking out all the jobs and all
Yeah,
that? So
giving us the cheap money, and what's the
Possibly
ulterior
lah.
motive, right?
correct, and why are they taking the jobs and not giving it to us?
Yeah.
So I think there was a bit of distrust for foreigners and Chinese
Chinese
looking people.
specifically, lah. Yeah. So
In general.
unfortunately, you got lumped in that, lah.
Yeah, possibly lah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So then what happened? 3 months, 4 months
so
down
after
the road.
3-4 months, tail between my legs or something. I had to
Call back
come
New
back.
York with
I
the,
say, oh please.
But where
Go
were you
back.
based?
Nairobi.
Oh, in Nairobi.
Yeah, and I
But-
spent some time in Rwanda as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Kigali in Rwanda.
Wow, and how was that?
Oh, that is actually like Singapore.
Oh, really?
Yes. So after Kigali
The only
had
thing I've heard
some-
about Rwanda was the genocides, right?
Yeah, so after the genocide, the new government really did try to make a huge cultural change to the whole place. And if you go there, it's a small country, spotlessly clean. They're
Sorry, what
really,
year
really
was
clean.
this?
This was 2000 and berapa? 2012.
2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fairly recent.
Yes, it's spotless. The streets are wide. Super clean. People are really nice.
Ah.
Yeah, so very different from.
What's their industry?
I think plantation.
Okay.
I can't really remember. I think plantation and some agricultural stuff lah. Maybe farming, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was there to look at the coffee company. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Then,
Yes.
okay, enough of the African countries.
Yeah.
you
So
decided
then
to-
came back, and rejoined Bain again.
Okay.
Did some interesting projects, but at the time I think I was already looking out for
I guess now
something
that
I
you've
like.
had your epiphany, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Out there and
Yeah.
I want to do something a little bit more impactful and more direct, I guess.
Yes,
right?
more direct, yeah. So I was looking out for ideas. Every day I was telling my friends, hey, imagine if we had this, and imagine if we had that, and then one day somebody just said, hey, why don't you really take a step of faith and do it? So then okay lah, sort of like beginning 2014,
Right.
decided to take a venture out, and at the beginning, I had no idea at all. Was brainstorming a few things and all that, and then I got to know that Alex, my co-founder, was also looking for ideas.
Okay.
So one day we just
So
sat
where was
down.
he?
He was in Singapore.
Okay.
He still is. He's Malaysian but living in Singapore.
Okay.
So one day we just sat down literally on my kitchen table, like the cliche,
Right.
and brainstormed all the different ideas and landed with this one.
Okay.
Yep.
So then there was Recommend version 1.
Yes, it was literally Recommend version 1. So our mission, even from that day in the kitchen, right, is to bring transparency and trust to the home services industry. So I had just finished helping my parents do renovations for the family home. So I realized how unstructured, how stressful, how terrible that process could be. I think it took 1.5 years.
Of getting contractors.
Yes,
and
terrible. Contractors
comparing
upon
quotes and
contractors,
things,
yeah. Reworks, budget overruns. So it was just terrible, the entire process. Alex had the same challenges as well because he was trying to do some, upgrades to his home, and I think it was a water heater guy. Basically came to the house, dismantled the thing, told him, it'll take X amount to fix it back, and that amount actually was more than what it would take to buy a new water heater.
Right.
So then he said, no, thank you. And the guy just left without, putting it back together again.
Sweet.
So he had some pain as well.
Okay.
So we came up with version 1. It was very much a Yelp for service contractors. And then we realized that it was, not going to fly so easily.
So how did that work? So it was the two of you decided, here's the
Yeah.
idea, right?
Yep.
Then what next? Did you get some developers? How was that
So
journey?
literally, we decided that was going to be the idea. Obviously, I created a deck. We always have a deck, right?
Of course.
So there was a deck, and then Alex
This is the
started
PowerPoint skills that you picked up in
Right.
Accenture. Right?
That's the first thing you do, right? So you create a deck of materials, convince yourself that it was doable. Then, drew up some screens and then started the market validation.
Okay.
So we, approach customers, talk to them and say, what your pain points are, what would you love to see. Then we talk to contractors, plumbers, and to say, what your problems are or what are your problems. And then we try to create a platform that solves both sides.
So at that point, the focus of the services is still on renovations and construction.
It was
small
we
time,
were always
that kind of
having both home maintenance type things like aircon service repairman, plumber, electrician, and also home improvement, which is things like renovation contractors, interior designers, and all of that. Yeah, so we always had those two parts of our business, and over the years, depending on how the market moved, we shifted our focus from one to the other.
Okay.
But it was always a balance of these two things.
So it started off in Malaysia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we started off in Malaysia in 2014. And then in 2015, we met this guy called Anthony. And he was also having sort of like similar ambitions in Indonesia. And at that point, it was very exciting, or the thing, right, to actually move out of your country borders. And we knew that if we were, really aiming to be a huge company and have an impact across thousands and thousands of service providers, we will need to make sure that the model that we have could scale across Southeast Asia at least, right? And Indonesia being the country with the largest population and also the largest sort of middle class, we knew that we had to make sure that our model worked there. So Anthony joined us. We were very,
So
lucky
who
to
was
have
us
him.
at that point?
Alex and myself.
Still just the two of you?
Actually, by the time Anthony joined, I think it was still pretty much like, I don't know, on one hand, 5 people, something like that. It's probably Alex, myself, and 3 interns,
Right. And the business itself, how was it at that point?
The business itself, I think we
number
had...
of service providers and number of customers.
I don't really remember exact numbers. I don't think we even had a paying customer yet. But we had many people who were already, there was liquidity, right? People were making requests, service providers were quoting.
So let's take a step back a little bit and
Yes.
talk about the business model, or how does the Recommend platform itself work?
Okay.
Yeah, for
In those
customers
days
and
or
also-
now?
In those days.
Okay.
Because then we can see how did it evolve, right?
Right?
So those days?
Okay, so we started off with a very Yelp model. So you go there and then, the system will actually prioritize for you what are the most highest rating, suitable companies in that area. And we quickly realized that, firstly, it would take too much traffic and money to make that model work because the network effects are too strong. And then, in those days, I think we also participated in Magic's E at Stanford program.
Okay.
Yeah, which brought us to the Valley. And so we spoke to the people there and they say, girl, reconsider your model. So, and then we also learned about companies like Thumbtack and Home Advisor. That very much, much bigger companies in the Valley, and that started many years ago, right? So we took some elements of that model and brought it back to Southeast Asia. And during that time, we also realized that finding a service provider, especially when it comes to bigger projects like renovations and interior designer, is less one way, and it is actually more like dating. So, for example, if you're looking for a restaurant, it's about one customer looking for one restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. The restaurant doesn't choose its customers.
That's right.
Yes. But for renovation contractors, they do. So when a customer is looking for, say, a renovation contractor, he's looking for someone who is able to understand him, to translate his vision, whatever there is in his head, into a real product within the timelines, within the budgets that he's
And
comfortable
cheap.
with. Yeah.
Well, okay lah.
Yes.
Generally
Yes.
cheapest that I could get.
Cheapest, yeah.
Right.
The
And as
renovation
opposed to, yes, and then the
yeah.
contractors will then,
They're also
decide
choosing
whether,
the customers because depending on their size, depending on whether or not they have their own staff, whether or not they have their factories, they prefer to deal with customers of a certain budget.
Yeah.
So, for example, we have renovation contractors that prefer to do work only above 100,000. We have some that are okay between 50 and 100, and we have some between 20 and 50. Right? They're all different setups and different kind of maturity. Right? So, in a way, it's more like a matchmaking platform like Tinder,
Yeah.
more than it is like Yelp.
which
So
is more
because-
like just advertising space,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And then
It's not
you
like
see who
one
comes.
way. It's actually two ways, right? So we changed our model to be customer tells us what they need, and then the service providers would then pay to quote back to the customers.
Okay.
Right.
So they actually pay to quote.
Yes, they
Right.
actually pay to quote. Yeah, in those days lah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we ran a pay to quote model for the longest time, and then we realized that perhaps it wasn't so fair to charge service providers just to quote because sometimes customers don't even look at the quotes.
Right.
So there are customers who are maybe not so high intent. They actually come in, they make requests, and then the service providers quote. They look at it, but they don't even interact with it. So we felt maybe we want to align the incentives a little bit and say that we will only charge if the customer then says, I'm interested in this quote.
Ah, okay.
Right. So I
But
think
what was the pricing like for charging to quote before?
not much. It's like only a fraction of what the project would be.
Okay, so it's a percentage of the project.
It's very
of the project
small.
price.
It's something
Okay.
like 5, 10, 20 ringgit, depending
Okay,
on the
okay.
price, yeah.
Yeah, but still,
So-
if a contractor wants to bid for 10,
Yes.
20 different jobs, right?
Yes,
So
it could
it's-
cost them quite a lot.
yeah.
And so one of the differentiation that we have even today, and none of our competitors have this, is that we only charge a lead fee when the customer states that they're interested. Right.
Okay.
Not just upon quoting. Right.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then around 2000 and so that went well, right? Around 2016 or 2017, we implemented a model for home maintenance that was at that time again superior to other models in the market. So we realized that if you're looking for, say, an aircon serviceman or a plumber or electrician, you will find it very difficult to understand the quotes coming back. So, for example, if they say, okay, I want to service this thing or I want to fix something and this is what's wrong with it, then various different people will have to give you a quote. And if they have not seen the site, the quotes are actually not very accurate. So you will find that, 4 people visit your homes and then after that they quote you 4 different things and it was very difficult to understand. So we took a look at all our home maintenance categories and looking at the data, decided to standardize the prices across as much as we can. So today, if you go to our site and say, I would like to service an aircon, 1.5 horsepower, R22 gas or whatever it is, we have standard pricing for you.
Right.
And all our service providers follow our pricing.
Okay.
Yes.
So how was that? If we go back a little bit in terms of, right, it was just you and your initial partner, and suddenly you need to go start talking to all these different contractors and service providers, right? How was that journey?
Oh, it was difficult time. I think the first 2 years was really difficult. So we split the roles between us. So Alex will take care of marketing and product. So he was in charge of all the Google ads and the Facebook ads and everything. And we did product together, but it was mostly Alex because he's got a technical background. He, drew the screens, validated the screens, coordinated with all the developers.
Okay.
Back then we had like front end guy, back end guy, but they were all freelancers. So it was not easy to manage their time. And then I would do the selling lah. I would talk to service providers, I still have a picture of the first check that we got and, it was a crazy
For the
moment lah.
project, I'm sure.
Yes.
So it's trying to convince, at that point, who were your other competitors who were trying to sell platforms to these contractors and service providers?
I think there were quite a few, but they weren't large, and I think most of them are probably not around anymore. I think what they did not realize was that it's actually a very tough business. It's easy to get from 0 to 1, but it's extremely difficult to get from 1 to 10. And the reason is when you are extremely specialized, it's okay. I mean, you have a few guys, you have a few customers, the liquidity works well. But as you are growing bigger and bigger and bigger, you realize that it is necessary to create liquidity in hyper-local environments. So for example, I need liquidity in Monkera. Liquidity means enough customers for enough service providers.
Yeah.
And that balance cannot be very off.
Yeah.
So if you get the balance off, either the customers are making a request and nobody wants to serve them,
Which frustrates them. So
them.
they'll stop using the platform. Yeah.
or the service provider has paid to be on your platform, but there are no jobs. So hyper local liquidity is needed, and in order to get hyper local liquidity, you need to be of a certain size.
Yeah.
Right. And so it took us quite some time to get from zero to not from
1 to
0 to
10.
1, but from 1 to I wouldn't say we're 10 lah, I'll say we're 3 lah now.
But how do you address that problem? That's the supply demand problem. It's a classic supply demand
Classic.
kind of issue, right?
Classic.
So how do you address that?
I think in the earlier days, when we ramped up a little bit, we always look at the data to see where would we get demand and where there is supply. So we quickly looked at the town centers and we figured out which town centers had the best potential for hyperlocal liquidity.
So by the fact that you're using the term hyperlocal means that Recommend is actually quite geographic specific, right? When you go into a market, you make sure that this is where we have enough demand and we have enough suppliers.
Yes.
Right? Then we go and market that.
Yes.
As opposed to, hey, here's a launch in Malaysia, everybody come join our platform.
Yes.
Everybody.
Unfortunately,
Right?
we can't do that lah. Life would have been a lot simpler if we could do that, but we realized there's a hyperlocal element, especially for things like aircon, cleaning, where customers expect quite quick turnaround. For example, if they make a request at 2 p.m., sometimes they expect it by 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do need to have that kind of thing lah.
Okay.
Yeah. So over the years, we actually improved that. Some cities like Jakarta, which is a lot more dense, we can do it within you request at 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. the guy's at your door. Yeah.
Sorry, so go back to that. So, then you met Anthony.
Yes,
Was
then
it?
we met Anthony. Anthony had similar vision, brilliant guy, really awesome. So he joined us. We were very lucky to have him. And
Did he reach out to you, or how did that work?
I think we were introduced to each other.
Okay.
Yes.
Was he running a similar platform down in Jakarta at the time?
I think he started something very, very early stages. But then he decided that it was much better if he kind of joined us lah, and we did it together. Yes.
So how was that experience?
The experience? It's been nothing but good things so far, I think.
So when was that? Sorry?
That was in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still fairly early on, you
Yes.
had a couple of years in KL and
Yes.
then straight away jumped in Jakarta.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was 2015, and then we grew a bit, and I think ever since we launched, I think we've always been the biggest player. They were competitors, I think, but in terms of scale, they were nowhere close lah. Yeah. So Anthony also built out a very good team in Indonesia. We were very lucky for that. And the team just has been flying like ever since.
So when you talk about team, help me understand a little bit from a breakdown standpoint, right? So developers, sales, how's that in terms of your
So
your
we
team?
structure by marketing, and then operations, which makes sure that the liquidity works. And then we have business development, which then looks for service providers and all of that.
Yeah.
And then we have the tech team, the product. So the tech team and the product team.
So which is the biggest team right now in terms of split?
I would say probably still the marketing, operations, and business development. Yeah, it's still very much on the ground kind of business where you need to talk to people. People need to see you to make sure you're real, Yeah, that sort of thing. But I think our tech team is growing because probably in the next phase, we shall talk about it later on. It will be more tech-centric rather than operation-centric. Yes.
So what is Recommend like today, right? From a staff strength standpoint, from a business strength standpoint, how are you guys doing right now?
Okay, so I'll share the things that I'm able to share.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
so we are across 3 countries. So we are Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand as well.
Okay.
So in Thailand, we cover I guess 2 major business models. So the first one is home maintenance on demand, where if you're looking for a cleaner, an aircon guy, plumber, electrician, we have standardized rates. You call the guy, you put in an order and the guy calls you back within minutes and arranges for an appointment, right? So so that's home maintenance on demand.
Yep.
And then we have the lead marketplace, where if you're looking for a renovation contractor, interior designer, a painter, a project that is bigger, and you like to look for quotes, you can let us know what your requirements are.
Okay.
We will route it to the contractors or the service providers that are best for you based on our algorithm. And then they will actually write a quote back to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So in a matter of sometimes minutes, sometimes hours, you're able to get, these 4 guys are interested in my job. And it's roughly going to be, 4,000 to 5,000 ringgit. Something like that.
So your algorithm makes sure that this kind of matching between quotation requests and people interested to provide quotations is kind of done autonomously, right?
Yes. So we don't touch any of that.
There's no some monkey at the back looking at the Excel thing
Oh,
that's
no.
popped up. Aha! You know,
Well, in the early days, I was the
have-
monkey, but now it's automated.
well done. You've done.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was really awesome. You see the request and you quickly like WhatsApp them and say, "Hey, got this job can do or not? Hey, got this job can do or not?" Then you go online and then you reply on their behalf.
Yeah.
So to the customer, it seems automated, but actually it's just me on the back
At
end.
the back. Well,
Yeah.
you got to, right? I mean, that's a hustle. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 different countries now. So in terms of, I don't know, your own revenue size, which is the biggest one between the 3?
It's actually quite equal across the 3 countries.
really?
Yes. Indonesia by far has much more volume than Malaysia.
Okay.
But because the income levels there are lower.
So the charges are
yes,
are less.
yes.
And when did you go to Thailand?
The year after that, 2016.
Okay. So
Yes.
that's pretty aggressive. 2013 was Malaysia, right?
No, 2014 Malaysia, 15 Indonesia, and 16 Thailand. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And within the last 4 years, Thailand's caught up with the rest of the other countries.
Pretty much,
sounds like.
yeah. Thailand's very strong on home improvement and renovations.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. So that's why the revenue has caught up very quickly.
Ah.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same model between
model.
the 3 countries.
Yeah,
Just
same
copy
model.
pasted.
Yep.
Same platform.
Same platform, same
Okay.
model. Yeah.
And then over there, I guess obviously from a language standpoint, it's localized to Thailand.
It's absolutely localized. So one of the main decisions that we made is not to implement the same brand name across all these countries.
Okay.
They're actually pretty nationalistic and pretty loyal. So
Okay.
we use local brand names, everything local feel,
So
local
what is
language.
it? So we got Recommend in Malaysia.
Yes, and then Sejasa in Indonesia and Help D in Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah, they all mean sort of the same thing in the local language.
Right.
Yep.
What's the Thai word for help D?
Help D is services, and D is I think a local prefix or something like that.
Go on, say
Yes.
it. What
It's
is
a-
it? What
I-
is it?
I-
You know?
It's services. I just know it's services. Help, right? So
Yeah.
Sejasa is as well services, and I think Sir is a local prefix as well. Yeah, I could be getting this wrong, but
Jasa.
Jasa.
My
Right.
Indonesian
Over
not good
here, Jasa is more like what is Jasa here?
enough.
Like
You're testing me here.
like order.
Jasa by so it's
Yes, it's something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, but more skewed towards real
service
services.
lah, services.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to your hyper local thing, so in Malaysia, in KL anyway, so where do you find the best balance of that?
Of that. So
Super and-
we're very strong in PJ.
Okay.
So PJ, Subang, Mont Kiara, Bangsa, KLCC. I think these are all our strongholds lah. If you request for a service there, probably in like seconds you will get.
You will get, okay,
yeah.
so there's sufficient on both sides.
Yes.
And in Jakarta, that's even
Jakarta,
bigger, right?
it's even like sometimes it's 2 seconds and someone calls you back.
But within Jakarta itself, do you know the specific region that
yes.
Sejasa is pretty strong in?
I think, let me see. The last time I checked, we were pretty strong in North Jakarta and Central Jakarta as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of do you service a lot of expats or locals or kind of both?
Surprisingly more locals than expats. Earlier on, we thought that this service would be very good for expats. But then we realized that most expats are renting their homes, so they don't do any sort of home improvement. And
true.
their cleaning is usually done by a local Filipino lady. So we don't actually have that many
So
expats,
it's normally for so it'll be homeowners essentially, right?
homeowners and people who have a second property for investment. So if they are renting it out for Airbnb, they love us because we take care of everything end to end. Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
So with an Airbnb type relationship, how does the access work? Do you pick up the keys from the owner and then they just trust you to go and sort out the services?
cleaning.
Yeah.
So we do a whole range of stuff for Airbnb. The first one is that if an owner is hoping to put their homes on either short stay or long stay, we have some design templates which you can consider. And our design templates are all designed such that they're put together to prioritize a few things. Firstly, it must be between a price that the owner can get ROI in months, not years, right? So it cannot be too expensive. Secondly, it has to look good because it has to look good in pictures and it has to be
for sure.
attractive to renters, right? So it has to look good. And the third one is that it has to be tahan lasak. So, especially for short stay, the tenants tend to be, they test the strength of
rougher
your
lah.
furniture. Yes, and the wear and tear
Politely. Yeah.
is higher. So we have to make sure that we have materials that doesn't wear well. So for example, we try to avoid wallpaper because wallpaper in our weather does not last very long, and also after a while it starts to peel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
can see the
sometimes,
joints.
if your tenant is a bit itchy fingers,
Yeah.
gatal a bit, so that the guy will dig lah. So then what will happen is your maintenance cost is very high.
Yeah. Correct.
So we try to avoid some of that. We try to have furniture and all that. That will be okay, even if a very large individual sat on it heavily,
Right.
for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that's one side.
Yeah.
And then we have just launched a cleaning service
okay.
for Airbnb as well. So if you have a unit that you like serviced, we have turnaround people that can go in and go out. And then you can pay at the end of the month, for example.
I'm surprised though. I would have thought cleaning services would have been one of your earlier services as well on the list.
We didn't really prioritize cleaning for the longest time. I think the reason for that was that we realized that most of the money at that time was mostly in home improvement. So we wanted to conquer the area with the most revenue. You look at the profit pool, right?
Yeah.
Profit pool was the highest in the home improvement space. Now that that's growing along merrily, we have looked at all the other sort of like more recurring services like cleaning and maybe to a certain degree aircon, and we think that those offer pretty good returns as well.
And smaller. So with the smaller ticket size for those, you need to have more volume lah.
More
Right?
volume.
So I
lah.
guess that's when you can, now that you have your volume.
The team in place, yeah, exactly.
How,
So
how is the volumes? Can I ask?
very good. I mean, I can't give actual numbers, but I think on a monthly basis is right now about 10-20% growth.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty decent. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you see the uptake? So knowing from strategy, right? You always have your hockey stick business case, right? So when was that uptake to a sustainable 10-15% per month growth?
Okay. So here's the secret. The hockey stick is a very rare thing to find, and usually only works when something has very little marginal cost. Right. So for example, you would see the hockey sticks in things like SaaS businesses, where it takes almost nothing to serve the next customer and the next customer, right? So then you see this kind of hockey stick. When it comes to us, like for example, two-sided marketplaces and even in e-commerce, you rarely get the sort of thing.
But what is the challenge of scaling up in terms of why are the costs incremental as you scale up?
Okay. Why is the hockey stick less attainable unless you have a pure software play, right? Is that for example, for us, we need hyper local liquidity.
Yeah.
So when we open a new market, we need to have both marketing focused on it and we need to have operations team focused on it, right? So in a way, every time we open a new market, the costs do go up. Not so much as a lot of other
I'm sure
businesses.
there's efficiencies that you can gain.
There is definitely
but
efficiencies.
you still need to
It
have
gets the economics get better and better and better with scale. But it's not like that. It's maybe like that lah. Yes.
gradual lah.
It's gradual. Hockey stick businesses are not easy to find, and they
They
also
only use that when you want to raise funding.
tell
Right?
you.
Look, within 5 years you'll be super.
Yeah, but in the initial days when you first start off a business, you honestly believe that it's very easy to achieve, right? Because that's where you see like Airbnb lah, Google, Facebook, and like all businesses need to look like that, right?
That's right.
And that's how you plan your business, and you realize that as you go along, that different businesses have different growth profiles, and that's good. Because if it's easy to achieve that hockey stick, it's easy for someone to compete with you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of, so speaking on investments then, so are you guys, who's funding Recommend? What's the ownership structure like?
Okay, so the ones that we've announced, we have Gobi Partners. That's a Malaysian kind of VC. And then we have other VCs, angel investors and other guys as well. But a little bit more quiet lah, those.
Are you still looking at fundraising, or are you guys
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
self-sustaining now?
We are a very sustainable business, but we are still looking for funds.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
We always be fundraising, right? Yeah, it never stops from day one.
I guess.
Yeah.
What is the outlook for the next couple of years then?
Well, I don't know.
Recommend.
We're looking for the last few months. I think we are getting some things very right. right? So things are really trending in the right directions, in terms of volumes, in terms of margins, revenue, gross profits, things like that. So trending in a very exciting way. What's next for us is like we want to be literally a platform where service providers, when they join on day one, they can literally start making money already. Right. Our models are set up such that, we are able to bring someone on board and even train them if necessary. Fresh grads, people who have just graduated from SPM, from day one, if they are willing to work hard. Vocational things like aircon, electricians, handyman, plumber, cleaning. If they are willing to take those sort of jobs, they can earn, north of 2,000-3,000 a month.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And these are individuals, right? That you're saying?
Individuals or companies, same. We want them to be able to just plug in and be able to
And
earn a good
suddenly
living.
here's all the demand that comes their way.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I look at articles, newspaper articles saying how many thousands of graduates who cannot get jobs, people who after 1.5, 2 years of graduation still, are looking for jobs. And I really want to find a way to reach out to them and say, hey, look, we have jobs here. From day one, you'll be earning this sort of salary, come and reach out to us.
So, interesting you've got that far, right? So, was your experience in Nairobi and even during your INSEAD days, right, of helping somebody directly, right?
Right.
Was that always at the back of your mind that what Recommend could be is essentially providing employment?
Jobs to people? Yes. So it's, I think the spirit of it, right, has always been there. And I think, all of my co-founders, all three of us, we have the same passion to be able to create a platform to enable people to grow their businesses, find jobs, and really, bring themselves to the next level. We never want to be we don't want to be a cleaning company, an aircon company, or any of these different types of companies. We want to be a platform, and that has been very clear since day one. Yeah.
I guess for places like Philippines, Indonesia, and probably to a certain extent Thailand, there's a lot more of that opportunity, right, to provide, the people to work. Not that I mentioned Philippines.
Yes.
Are you guys going to go to the Philippines?
Well, at the moment, no plans. It's a bit jauh lah. I got
really
2 kids,
just
I got 2 kids, cannot travel so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a bit far, and neither of us are experts in the market. So when we enter into the market, we need to be sure that one of us at least is the expert there. Yeah, because otherwise we have no advantage, no connections. It's quite tough.
So from scaling up standpoint, where do you think you want to take the business? So you've got 3 countries now. Is it about growing and deepening your businesses within these 3 countries first before
Absolutely.
you look out?
Absolutely, yeah. So in the countries that we are if top 2, if not the number 1 player in each of these markets, right? I'm trying to make sure that we are comparable to even the grey market. So a lot of our competition in each of these countries is not another startup, but it's actually the grey market. So, for example, if you are looking for a contractor, you might actually go to your cousin to get a recommendation or someone, right? So
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, right? So that is our real competition.
Your
and
WhatsApp groups.
Yes, exactly. WhatsApp groups. So hard to penetrate them, so that's our real competition. So we need to make sure our value proposition is even better than contacting somebody on WhatsApp, waiting for the response, that sort of thing. So that's where we intend to go for now. And then after that, the world is just our oyster.
That's cool. Yep. So you just mentioned you had 2 kids.
Yes.
Right. So throughout this journey, so how was that being a mother and running your own business?
Oh, you cannot see the dark eye rings and
looking fabulous.
It's tough lah. But it's tough because when we started off in 2014, I had no idea I was going to have a kid in 2015, right?
Okay.
And then another one in 2018 lah, which is last year, right? So
congratulations.
Yeah, so somehow, life is really weird, all the things always pile up. Nothing happens for like 11 months and then everything happens in the 12th month, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when I gave birth to my first kid, at a time it was like kind of December, and we just secured investment. So literally, the final presentation was something like 5 days after I gave birth.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I have this story and my team keeps, laughing at me. So I literally, after I gave birth, a few hours later, I was messaging them and say, do you have the final deck, right? Is the final deck ready? And I think from day 2 or day 3, I was having conference calls from the hospital. So it was basically me still connected to that machine and the laptop and like shouting at someone because, the connection also good, right? So literally shouting at my team, and like, hello, can you hear me, And then this nurse comes in and they say, kenapa ni? I say, kak, tunggu. So I buat call ni dulu, say, tak pernah jumpa lah orang macam ni. So,
I guess that's testament to your drive, right? To
No
do
lah,
this, you
it's
have
not
to.
recommended lah, you know.
But you got to do what you got to do, I
You
guess.
got to
right?
do lah, yeah.
If
But
if you could time it better, then you wouldn't have timed it around giving birth.
if you know, if we could time life, right, things would be so much
Yeah.
better. But it also taught me a lot of things. So at that time, I thought I was the only cakap person lah. Everybody else was a doing type person, right? So
Yeah.
I was really worried to have them present to the IC, and turned out, you know, it went brilliantly. Yeah, so I needn't worry. And you know, sometimes we think too much of it lies on our shoulders.
Yeah,
Like, oh, it's
that
up
you
to
have to do
me,
everything.
right? It's
Yeah.
because I'm doing all this. But I think, you know, God has a way to also, you know, control outcomes lah, even though I'm out of the picture.
Yeah.
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 So it's something that, you know, taught me a lesson.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you something else now that I've kind of slipped my mind. Yeah, the name of the program is Tech This Way,
Right.
right? So let's talk about technology a little bit in terms of how technology has actually driven your business to date, right?
Sure.
So you mentioned a little bit about algorithms.
Yes.
So
Yes.
share with me a little bit more about how did that
How does it work?
how does it work for you guys?
So we have an algorithm in places with very high density that actually chooses which service providers we want to allocate the jobs to. So some of the things that go into it is, for example, how well they perform, how quickly they pick up jobs, you know, and how right we think that this service provider will match to the customer. So we have got you know, technology in place to be able to do this, and also to distribute the jobs well, so that not all the good jobs go to one person, but rather it's more like, you know, spreading butter on the bread. That everybody gets.
Giving the opportunities to everybody.
Yes.
So how was that built out? Was it an internal tech? Did you guys?
Oh yeah,
get
it's all
people in?
internal. Yeah,
Okay.
we have a very strong team based out of Indonesia.
Okay.
Yes. So we have you know, front end, back end, you know, analytics, the whole jazz lah. And they look at all this data and they try and figure out how to allocate the jobs better.
So why was that in terms of finding the skills? Was it easier down there as opposed to in Malaysia or in Thailand? Because, you know, obviously you started in Malaysia. And it suddenly sounds like, you know,
Moved
everything's
it down
developed down in.
I think the skills seem to be a little bit more affordable down there.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, after a while, you know, we had tech teams in 2 countries, and after a while we decided let's just consolidate in one country. Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems to be working well so far. Yeah.
What about the other skills in terms of, you know, your marketing? You said, was that?
Oh,
any
that's
easier?
local. Yeah.
Okay.
Marketing.
Was it
business
difficult to get?
development.
Was there any challenges in getting those kind of skills?
It requires some training. For example, performance marketing and things like that. It requires us to have people who are skilled. But we already have people who are very strong at it in the company already. So as new guys come in, you know, we train them up, and then they take on a bigger and bigger like budget or portfolio, and then, you know, yeah, they're able to be running on their own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alex is also quite good at performance marketing. Not really performance marketing, but he looks
What's
at marketing.
performance marketing?
So performance marketing is really Facebook, Google ads, you know, Instagram ads, and very analytically making a decision on where to allocate your spend. So traditional marketing, I think, I'm not expert on marketing at all, but it looks like on things like branding, spend, you know, where should you buy media, for example, and then it looks at your messaging and, you know, things like that. So that's more like traditional marketing. Performance marketing is all about, you know, you have a certain spend, you have all these tech channels, you know, to actually push your message out there. Which one of it is actually delivering the most bang for a buck, right? Is what performance marketing is all about.
Right. Which has always been the holy grail of what marketing tries to do, right? What was that cliche? I spend $100 in marketing. The problem is I don't know which half.
Yes. Which one is delivering?
Is delivering the returns, right? But I guess with a technology platform now, that's more achievable.
Yes, but you know, I don't think it's really holy grail. I think really traditional marketing and performance marketing needs to go hand in hand. So, for example, when somebody finds our brand, just because he clicked on my ad for the first time does not mean that he heard of my brand for the first time, right? So the reason that he's clicking could be because my copy is so changgeh, right? And it's been A/B tested to death, right? But it could be because he heard about the brand from his cousin before, right? So there's an element of both traditional and performance that it comes hand in hand and actually cannot be separated. A lot of people think it can be separated, but it can't. So for example, so that's one example. And then when I push an ad to a person on Facebook or they see it on Google or something like that, then maybe 3 months later, they come and make a request. I cannot track that because they don't click that link at that moment, right?
Yeah. There's
so
no
they
need
come.
yet, right?
There's no need yet. So they come back 3 months later. So to me, it seems like a random customer, but probably it's not. Probably because he's seen my brand 3 or 5 times.
Yeah. It's kind of
Or
registered
someone.
at the back of the mind there somewhere, right?
Yes.
Like
So
a
in a
time
way,
bomb.
right, traditional drives to performance, performance drives to traditional. It's very
Interesting.
hard to
Interesting.
separate the both.
Yeah. Okay, we're coming to almost the hour,
Rah!
surprisingly.
It's very quick.
A couple of, I guess, one last question for me really is,
Sure.
okay, so it's been 6 years now, right?
5 plus lah. Yeah.
5 plus going to
I like
6.
to make the number lower. Just like my age, I like to make the number be lower. Yeah.
Yeah. So not very long. This is going to be the longest you've been in one place.
Oh yeah, it's going to beat Accenture
Right?
soon, yeah?
It's going to be
Yeah,
Accenture
yeah,
for
yeah,
6
yeah.
years.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? So Bain, okay lah, with the split.
Uh-uh.
Right? And now
Yeah.
it's 6 years. So things are still okay, I guess. Sounds like, you're going to stick to this.
But I think
and,
so.
and drive,
Yeah, I think if given the opportunity, we think that the market is huge, the potential is huge, and we're getting something very right? So I really like that. Yeah. So hopefully lah, we are able
Okay,
to.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember now what I wanted
Yes.
to ask.
Yes.
The 2 things. The branding, recommend. I think offline we spoke about how you've changed that
Yeah.
and how important it was to do that change.
Yeah.
Number 2 was in terms of the platforms that you reach out to your customers.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about the first one first. Recommend the brand change.
Right. Okay. So when we started, we wanted to be very smart and changi and
All cool Silicon Valley lah.
very cool Silicon Valley. So we wanted some acronyms lah. So we have Recommend. So it's RECOMN.com. And you know what? The feedback was great. I mean, I showed to all my Bangsa crowd friends, and they said, "This is great.
Wow,
It sounds
cool lah.
smart. It's so cool, right? We get it." And then I realized,
RECOMN.
and right, so it's recommend, recommend,
Recommend,
right?
yeah.
So we thought, quite changi lah, right? Yay, great name. And then we realized that nobody could pronounce it. No one. And that includes people that has been working with us for 1 year. Everybody came to me and said like, "Hello, Recoma." I'm like, no, right? So so it was terrible lah. And one thing we learned also that if you cannot pronounce something, you cannot remember something. So people will keep coming to us and say it's like Reco, right? Or Recom, right? Or recommended, right? Or something of the sort, right?
Yeah.
And then 3 years down, we made the painful decision to rebrand. And so today it's called Recommend.my.
There you go. Good
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And in terms of platform, so is it just an app? Do you go to websites too to go recommend? How's that work now?
Okay, so we have a very good website that works very well on desktop and mobile as well to make a request. We have an app out there, but we are actually relaunching our app with a lot more changi features.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so look out for that. There will
So
be
from the beginning though, was it an app first, then web, and then was
web
it web?
first, then app.
Oh, it's web first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why was that? Why didn't you follow that?
Why not app first?
Exactly right. So that was the mobile first was the theme, right?
Okay.
When you go into this kind of businesses, right?
Yes. So a lot of people ask us why not app first because they say, that's the future, right? Well, I think the truth is that apps are very expensive to develop and expensive to get a user to actually download it as well, right? And there's no way for you to trap users the way that Google and Facebook can easily trap users. Not to say trap lah, but attract them.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to target somebody who's looking for a plumbing service, he's not going to go to the app store and type plumber and that's not the established route.
Yeah.
They will go to Google, right? So we needed a sizable database first, comfortable with the web technology before we actually implement our app. Yeah, and web is a lot faster to develop, pivot, change, amend, right, compared to the app.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we only wanted to do the app when our business model is stable.
Okay.
Right, and it's taken quite a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I think
when
now's
did it?
time.
When did you launch your app?
We launched our app for the first time probably 2017.
Okay, so that's what, a good 3 years after
bad.
your website.
Yeah,
but I assume your website was
it was always light years ahead of our app.
But it's also mobile friendly lah.
Yes,
that you can use
very much. In fact, the
mobile
experience
browser.
is probably almost the same. So our website is developed mobile first. Yeah. So
Okay.
if you access it using your phone, everything works
It's the same.
perfectly.
Okay. And in terms of the split of the orders, right, between your app since you launched it and the website, I'm assuming then it's still majority from the website.
Yes, majority website, but a lot of it on the mobile phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
Yes.
mobile usage, but connecting
Yes.
to your website.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But that's we're gonna change that. So look out for.
When
updates.
is that? When is that gonna happen?
Soon lah, soon.
Okay. In terms of the platform itself, because there's localized country languages, so it's
Yes.
different
It's different.
in Sejasa
Yeah.
and
And HelpD.
HelpD.
Yes.
Okay. And the app, is that gonna be the same?
Same.
Same. I mean, launched in the 3 countries, but all localized languages.
Yes. All localized languages.
Soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soon. It's coming.
Excellent, man.
Cool.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so
It's
much.
nice to
It's
see you
been an
again.
honor. Yeah. And good to catch up.
And then we'll see you again, and good luck with your new launch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
And,
very much.
go to Philippines.
We'll see.
Thanks, Jes.
Bye.